Three, two, one.
What's going on, everyone? You're watching Ash on Comics. My name is Ash, and I really like Sean Gordon Murphy quite a bit. He might be one of my favorite writer. Well, he's one of my favorite artists in the business. But man, he is not really known for drawing like hot chicks. So this is a fine illustration. There's really nothing wrong with it, but it doesn't have that certain. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, this is Catwoman 23, and this is the Sean Gordon Murphy, Blake Northcott collaboration issue. Although Sean only contributes part of the co-writing, Blake, she does the scripting, and then someone else does the art. It's not really bad art. It's not great art. It's standard, satisfactory comic book art. Now, speaking of good art, we got Michael Yannon on Wonder Woman 759. Too bad I have no interest in this. Anyways, moving on. So this book, you don't need to been following Catwoman. At least I didn't feel like. I don't follow Catwoman. I'm not a fan of Catwoman per se. I just jumped on this issue because it's the Sean Gordon Murphy, Blake Northcott one. And I wanted to see what it was all about. I wanted to see what they did. And I don't feel like I'm kind of lost in a story. This is exactly how comics were in the 80s and the early 90s. You could just jump in on an issue and hit the ground running. So we start the story off. There's this girl here. By the way, side note, word on the street is this is a new DC character called Catgirl, and so if you haven't picked up this book and you're a speculator, I think the book, last I heard, was already at $20. People are jumping on this. I'm not advising you to speculate. I'm not speculating myself. I'm just passing that on in case that information is something you care about. So we see this girl. She's running from these lights. We see that the lights are these motorcycles, and they're being chased down by these goons, and she gets kicked, and they grab her, and they're like, she's like, I'll do better, I promise. And, she works for a criminal overlord. Is it an overlord or an underlord? I guess either way works. And, she failed on a job or something, and of course, she needs to be made an example of. It's a typical trope. There's nothing out of this world here, but I really like this shot here. This whole page is really, I talked about the art. This whole page is really well set up. It, from a writing and an art standpoint, the sequential art really tells you the story. You don't even have to read what's happening. You can tell what's happening just from the pictures, and that's great. The words should enhance the art, not the other way around. And you can see from this frame right here, she's going to be made an example of, but look what's up above on the top. Really cool. And this happens at the page break. To see what happens, you got to flip the page, and that's great comic book storytelling. And then, of course, roar, big cat comes out of the jungle. And this thing is enormous. Of course, this is something that can only exist in comic books. This cat is gigantic. It's the jaws of panthers. And it comes out, and it can't be true. The stories were, and he of course dies. The little girl witnesses it, and then we cut over to Selina Kyle, and this is I want to say this book is a very almost paint by numbers, and I don't mean that in the normal bad way. I mean that it just follows a solid kind of adventure story that you have for, this could work with almost any type of character, any adventure type character. It didn't have to be Catwoman. You could really transpose the story, to whatever. I mean, this could be a John McClane story of Die Hard. You could do Die Hard on an island or something. Like, it's just that's what I mean by paint by numbers. It's not strictly like, oh, you could only do this with Catwoman. It just feels very basic. But sometimes basic is okay. Sometimes you just want to tell an entertaining story to give the reader their money's worth. They're here because they love Catwoman, presumably. They're not here because there's like, I don't know about this Catwoman character, but I want some really good writing. Almost no comic fan is like that, especially in the mainstream comics industry. Like, mainstream comics fans love their characters, right? I know this woman, she loves Iron Man. She buys all the Iron Man since going back to probably before I was born. And Rania, you know who you are. And she buys the Dan Slott Iron Man. I believe she bought the Bendis Iron Man. Even when it's bad, but she loves Iron Man so much, she just wants to read Iron Man stories. And she crosses her fingers and hopes and prays that she's going to get a good story. Sometimes it's too much to hope for, especially in comics. I mean, month after month after month after month writing stories, you're not going to be hitting home runs every time. You just need to get base hits. Don't strike out. Strikeout's bad. Base hit's good. Breen, that was a reference for you. That's a sports ball reference for Breen. If you guys don't know who Eric Breen is, you're lying. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Back to the book. So Selina arrives on the aisle, and we get some local kids. They're like, "Oh, Senora, you're so beautiful. You should have a flower." And Selina, of course, being savvy, streetwise, she catches one of the pickpockets. She's like, "You could lose a finger. Hey, let me go." But, because Selina Kyle's so, altruistic and everything, she's like, "Here's some money." She realizes, like, the kid's working for someone, needs to bring back, so she gives the kid some money. But there's some drones watching. Oh, no. And so the kid runs off. And then we get vroom. She's like, "You gotta be kidding me." And again, really solid comic book storytelling technique is you always have the transition, or, the reveal, I guess, of a scene happen on the page transition. And so we get this Lamborghini, this old school Lamborghini. This used to be my favorite car in the world, the Lamborghini Countach. It's, screech, comes in, license plate blow hard. And it's like, what's going on? So you got to flip the page, and Don Johnson shows up. "As I live and breathe, it's the cat herself, Selina Kyle. Your personal chauffeur is here, baby. The one, the only Snowflame." And you're just like, oh my God. Speaking of 80s, this book could have come out in the 80s. You could have showed me this book and said, "Hey, there's an old Catwoman book from the 80s, and I would have believed you. So he's there to escort her. And we still don't really know why Selina's here. And so they have this conversation. He's a drug dealer, and he kind of runs this island. And he's putting on this big super auction for all the Batman criminals. They're all there. Look at the size of this diamond. There's no diamond in the world is that big. But of course, it's comic book, so it can happen. I like Paris Hilton is apparently turned into supervillain in DC Comics. And if you don't know who Paris Hilton is, you're probably a Zoomer. So anyways, we get into some little catty back and forth between these two characters. And she's like, "You better not be looking at my diamond that I'm going to bid for, And then we get the Mission Impossible trope part where it's like, here's how dangerous it is, and we kind of play through an imaginary scenario of what would happen, and and it's pretty cool. I kind of like it. And then she's like, "Well, the other thing you could be here is for the list," and she's like, "The list? What?" And then we talk about that, like how hard it would be to get the list, and it's all fun. It's none of it was boring. It felt a little bit like it was adding fluff to the story, but it was interesting. I never once not enjoyed myself when I was reading this issue. So then the auction starts, and this book is, it's very formulaic, but I mean that in a good way. I wish more books were formulaic, precisely because of what I mentioned earlier about monthly comics need to just be able to keep the ball rolling, right? When I go and I'm buying my favorite comic book character, I'm like, whatever, I just want to have a satisfactory issue month in, month out, right? They don't have to be a home run every single time. If you're doing a mini-series, that's when I expect the home run. We got a 6-issue pre-planned mini-series. That's the one where I expect you have a beginning, a middle, and end. You've thought it out. You revised it. You've put it through editors. Editors have, critiqued it, nitpicked it, said, oh, you make this changes, do this. And you've got a really well-polished product. But when it's just month in, month out, just keep the ball rolling. Just base hit, base hit, base hit. I would rather have that than a home run, strikeout, 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 home run. It just, you just get tired of the book. You don't want to read anymore. This is what an ongoing comic book should strive to be. And so we go back in the woods and we see the snow flame guy. He wants to kill this panther because it's causing problems, and so it's a myth. I don't know. They're so they're gonna go kill it. Catwoman is there to intervene, and we get some fighting. Now, this is the part for me personally. I'm not a Catwoman fan. Really, okay, let's just say this. I'm a very big fan of Catwoman as a supporting character in Batman. I'm not a Catwoman fan at all for her having her own book. I believe, from a writer's standpoint, supporting characters exist to support. They don't exist to have their own series. I love Alfred. I've come to really love Alfred. Rest in peace. Screw you, Tom King. He is the heart and soul of Batman. He exists for a reason. Now, you could go tell an Alfred story. It's not like it's impossible to tell stories with support characters, but there's a reason why Alfred is not the star character. He wasn't designed to be that. He was designed to add to the star character. He was designed to be a part of the body, let's say. You have 2 hands, you have feet. On their own, they're really nothing, but when you put them all together, they form a body, and it's useful. I don't know if that was a really good analogy. Catwoman, to me, is like that. She makes a great antagonist. She makes a great love interest. She really adds dynamics and dimension to a Batman story. But on her own, what? She's a criminal. She's a multi... How many times is this woman a felon? I can't even count. She's running around. We got to kind of make her kind of heroic because she's now the central character. We can't have her, but she's not. She's a criminal. It just doesn't work for me. Now, your miles may vary. You're not me. So, anyway, so she's beating up the guys trying to kill the cat. The cat's, it's already shot. But look, it wakes. And that's, of course, that's almost kind of cliche. And then, roar, it's back to life. And here we get a really good look at how big this thing is. And we get Selina. She's just like, oh, no, please, don't make me do this. Don't make me do this. Why would Selina Kyle have a chance against this thing? Don't make me do this. Like, she's going to stop this. This is one of those things that in comics you just have to, roll your eyes. Remember, Selina Kyle has no special powers. She doesn't even have, decades of supreme ultimate combat training like Batman. I don't think Batman could take this. Unless he planned for it. Batman always has a plan. But Selina Kyle just out there with her physical prowess, she'd be dead in 2 seconds. But it's comic books. Anyways, that doesn't matter because a fight never happens. We get to see, you really should have listened to your own advice. On this island, you never know who's watching. So this is a kind of a story writing technique that I love, where things come full circle. You introduce something at the very beginning of the story, and the end of the story, it comes around full circle. This time it's the girl saying, the thing that Catwoman had said. And this frame, though, was not really well done. She tosses this spear, and the way it's drawn is it looks like it's like, here, catch, I'm going to give you something to help. But actually, she throws it and pins Catwoman through the shoulder. And it's poisoned, and she's knocked out, and dun da da. You should have chosen your mark more carefully. You're about to lose more than your finger. So that's it. That's the end of Catwoman. Like I said, I enjoyed this book. I didn't love it because I'm not a Catwoman fan. It doesn't make me want to keep like, I need to keep reading Catwoman. But I imagine a person who is a Catwoman fan and just likes reading the exploits of Catwoman is going to feel very satisfied. This was a very competent comic book. There's really nothing to complain about. I can nitpick. But also there's nothing to really praise. It's not like, oh my God, this was so deep and it stirred my emotions. It was just fun, just enjoyable. This is a 3-star book in my opinion. Exactly what you should be hoping for. Don't take 3 stars as an insult. An ongoing book that's a 3-star month after month after month is a good ongoing book. Hopefully you get some special issues that are just like 4. I only give 5 stars out for the stuff that just floors me. Those are very, very rare. I don't believe in giving out 5 stars because if you do it all the time, then they kind of become meaningless. And when you really want to highlight something and go, holy crap, this is the best thing I've read in 10 years, you have to give it the same rating as 10 other things you just gave that month. So, good book. Like I said, if you're a Catwoman fan, check this out. You probably already are anyway. You don't need me. And maybe if you're not, get it because of the speculation. Maybe that'll get you to become a Catwoman. I don't know. But anyways, good job everyone involved. And thank you guys for watching.